and welcome. I'm Melinda Kimami. Tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari set to leave for a two-day working visit to Morocco on Sunday. Former Kaduna State Governor Balarabe Musa asked federal government to prosecute politicians responsible for the annulment of the June 12 presidential elections as Southwest states declared Tuesday work-free. Internally displaced persons in Benue State cry out over lack of basic amenities. And U.S. President Donald Trump proposes removal of trade tariffs in G7 summit in Canada as other nations struggle to resolve differences on trade.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's Sovereign Investment Authority unveils its plan for the growth and economic development in the country this year.
On sports news tonight, Simone Halep wins the maiden Grand Slam title after beating America's Sloane Stephens in the women's singles final of the French Open.
We begin tonight with President Muhammadu Buhari's planned visit to Morocco on Sunday. A statement from his senior special assistant on media and publicity, Mr. Galba Shehu, explains that the president's two-day visit is on the invitation of King Mohammed VI, following previous engagements in 2016 when the monarch came to Nigeria. He explains that discussions will focus on agriculture, education and infrastructure, as well as other projects beneficial to both countries. The president will be accompanied by the Governor Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State, Governor Abubakar Badaru of Jigawa State, and other senior government officials. And before he jets out, the president has explained why he stopped his special advisor on media and publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, from responding to former President Olusegun Obasanjo's statement against his administration. He informed members of the Buhari Support Organization who visited him at the presidential villa Abuja that he put several things into consideration, although the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, insisted on dishing out a response.
My press secretary sort of was agitated. He wanted to immediately reply. I stopped him for two reasons. Firstly, he was much younger than both myself and General Obasanjo. Secondly, he came from the same constituency with General Obasanjo, so I wouldn't know how it will affect him if I allowed him to go wild or to go public. But when Lai Mohammed came, I said he shouldn't. He insisted, he said no, he disobeyed me. He said I must allow him to talk. Then, of course, being a professionally information person, I listened to him. I said, what are you going to say? He said he was going to remind Nigerians where we found ourselves when we came in as a government, where we are now, and what we have done in between with the resources available to us. Wherever you are, we just have to do something about education. If you educate people properly, they will look after themselves, because there is a level below which they will not accept anything, even from their own parents, not talk of anybody outside. But the type of education we are having now, I think you better speak to the governors and so on. Let us invest more in education. It's the biggest investment we can make for the future of this country.
Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari. Meanwhile, the governor of Ekiti State, Ayodele Fayose, has no sympathy for the former president and has asked him to brace up for any action against him and stop crying foul. The governor says it's amusing that Chief Obasanjo, who told Nigerians that President Buhari was good for them, could be raising an alarm that the same administration wants him silenced.
What is he afraid of? He locked up Alamisia. He locked up so many people. He caused the misfortune of so many people. He started the EFCC. Why is he running away from it? So what goes round will come round. And President Buhari too should not forget that what goes round will one day come round. We are celebrating Abiola now. The president we never had. For the times these facts were hidden away and suppressed, it came to the fore again. So I'm telling you, expressly, President Obasanjo should go and clear his name. He should stop raising alarm.
Governor of Ekiti State, Ayodele Fayose. And staying with politics, a former governor of Kaduna State, Balarabe Musa, is asking the federal government to begin the process of investigating the issues that led to the annulment of the June 12, 1993 presidential election. In an interview with Channels Television, he explains that prosecuting all those who truncated the election will not only deepen the nation's democracy, but will also serve as a check to others who may want to engage in election malpractice. The elder statesman is also asking the federal government to extend the honor to the country's foremost nationalist.
I regard what he did with regard to June 12th and the highest honor award to Chief MKO Abiola late. I regard the two actions as relevant, just, courageous, and even patriotic. We hope President Buhari will follow up with actions to discover who actually was responsible for the nullification of the result of June 12 election, and take appropriate action against whoever was responsible for that. For the first time on June 12th, Nigerians willingly decided to set aside the differences among themselves and unite the country in principle. And that's what Nigerians did.
Even though the presidency has announced that June the 12th will not be observed as Democracy Day this year, the governors of most southwest states have declared the day a holiday. Lagos, Ogun, Ondo, Ekiti and Oyo states are setting the day aside to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the annulled 1993 presidential election, adjudged to have been won by Chief MKO Abiola. In the last 7 years, many of these states have always declared June 12th work-free in honor of the late politician. On June the 6th, the federal government conferred the highest national honor of the Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, GCFR, on Chief Abiola, and also declared June 12th as the country's Democracy Day, but with a clause that it will not be observed this year. The Cultural Affairs Officer of the United States Embassy in Nigeria, Mr. Larry Sosha, has expressed his country's support for Nigeria in the 2019 general elections. He was speaking as a mentor on good leadership and self-development to youth in Abuja on the Not Too Young to Run Act.
Looking ahead for Nigeria, the number one thing on the U.S. agenda, besides our standard of protecting Americans abroad, in Nigeria, we are looking to support Nigeria in holding free, fair, transparent elections in February of 2019. And we'll do that, we'll be working toward that, not only in monitoring elections that day, but also in the lead up to those elections, because Nigeria is the example for the rest of the continent. And I know you've heard that before, and you've had Ambassador Symington here before, and he is one of the biggest champions for the future and the progress and the prosperity of Nigeria. But the idea here that, as Nigeria goes, the continent goes. They always had that phrase back in like the 19th century that if France sneezed, all of Europe caught a cold. It was true, right? And that's why you had like French troops like on their way to like Moscow in 1814 or whatever it was. But it's the same thing here, but it's a more positive metaphor, I like to think. I mean, as Nigeria does well, Africa prospers. And that's the same thing for the relationship between my country and your country. I mean, if Nigeria does well, the United States prospers.
From politics, let's talk security matters now. In southeast Nigeria, the Imo State Governor, Rochas Okorocha, has been speaking about one of the ways to overcome the challenges of terrorism. The governor explains that the problem currently facing Nigeria is what other developed nations experience before achieving greatness. He was speaking to members of the Muslim community in the state who visited him at the State House to break their Ramadan fast.
What we're experiencing in our nation and bloodletting that we see recently in Zamfara, Benue, Kaduna and the rest of the places has never been experienced in so long a time or in the history. It is something that has called for sober reflection and for spiritual intervention in line with prayers. Fasting is a period where we make sacrifice and get closer to God and ask for things that we think are humanly impossible. I think the fasting of this time should be geared towards praying for this nation and praying that peace will return in our land and the killing of innocent soul must stop. Because issue of Boko Haram, what will you say on earth is responsible for it? Who will you say is behind it? So these are things that have gone beyond our comprehension and that we must take it as one of the trial moments in our life and pray and unite. The only challenge we have as a nation is that we are not in unity in fighting the challenges before us. We are rather divided in fighting it. Now, I tell you that Boko Haram is more united than Nigeria because they unite and they get results. But if we can also unite, irrespective of religion or tribe or color or whatever you come from and unite, we'll defeat these people.
Governor of Imo State, Rochas Okorocha. And outside Nigeria, the Conference of African and Nordic Foreign Ministers is asking African leaders to invest massively in economic empowerment program for youths in order to reduce restiveness in the continent. The campaign for youth empowerment is one of the major issues from the discussions as African foreign ministers and their Nordic colleagues meet in Copenhagen.
Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister Geoffrey Onyema joins his colleagues from neighboring African countries, as well as those from the Nordic countries, including Sweden, Norway and Denmark, for the 2018 African Nordic Foreign Ministers meeting in Copenhagen. This meeting provides opportunity for an informal dialogue between African and Nordic countries on a variety of foreign policies, including those relating to peace and security, investment and trade, as well as how to unlock the potentials of young people. Some of the discussions focus on the urgent need to eliminate trade barriers among African countries and create a network of business opportunities in order to reduce poverty.
Looking at the security challenges in the Gulf of Guinea area and what we're all doing and the kinds of security that they are looking for, and also the corruption issues that's involved in the maritime sector and the shipping. And they appreciated very much the improvements that they have seen in the area of security and cooperation of the government, and also in the areas of corruption in the shipping area.
President Talon, who is really concerned by the need of our countries to get really integrated, to put our economies together, to create wealth in order to fight poverty in our countries, is of the opinion that we need to create a network, a rural network between Benin, Niger and Nigeria in order to facilitate circulation of goods.
The urgent need for African leaders to invest in the economic development of youth from the continent is also emphasized by the foreign affairs ministers.
Generally speaking, the thematic mission that was delivered across the board was that people agree that there's need to empower youth in Africa to be able to make sense of their development. Otherwise, as there remains a potential for progress, there are also an explosive bomb that is waiting to be blown.
The African Nordic Foreign Ministers meeting is an annual conference that seeks to address social and economic challenges of member states. It is hoped that the outcome of this year's meeting will rouse African leaders to empower young people in the continent.
In part 2, after the break, our discussion tonight focuses on the plight of internally displaced persons in Benue State and the role of aid agencies to end their suffering. The Secretary General of the Nigerian Red Cross Society, Dr. Abubakar Kende, joins us live from our studios in Abuja. That's in a moment. Join us again.